What if the story we learned about human origins, that all non-Africans descend from a single, out-of-Africa wave, is fundamentally wrong? Imagine discovering that every person of European, Asian, Native American, or Aboriginal Australian descent carries a hidden signature in their genome. A tiny fragment of DNA, just 2%, inherited from a branch of early humans that no longer exists. A lineage with no skeletons we can point to, no museum displays, no chapter in the textbooks we grew up with. A lineage so deeply buried in time that even many geneticists rarely speak of it outside of technical papers. And yet, this 2% is not trivial. It is not noise. It is a quiet but disruptive clue that upends the clean, familiar story of human origins. Because if even a sliver of our DNA comes from a people who lived outside Africa long before the well-known migration 70,000 years ago, then our history is older, more layered, and far more tangled than we were taught. This ghost ancestry suggests that modern humans weren't a single, unified tribe suddenly stepping into Eurasia, but a mosaic, a fusion of multiple early branches of Homo sapiens, some surviving, some fading, all leaving faint echoes in the genes of those alive today. For decades, this detail sat in the margins, treated as a footnote. But footnotes don't reshape timelines. Footnotes don't rewrite migration models. Footnotes don't force us to confront a past filled with lost peoples and forgotten expansions. This 2% does. It challenges the simplicity of our origin story and opens the door to a deeper, more mysterious human past, one where entire populations rose, vanished, and yet continue to live within us as a whisper written into our DNA. In population genetics, the phrase ghost population carries a haunting precision. It refers to a group of early humans we have never uncovered in the fossil record. No skulls, no bones, no tools we can confidently assign to them, yet their DNA survives inside us. They are ancestors we know only through mathematics and molecular echoes, inferred not from archaeology, but from patterns hidden in modern genomes. Like footprints in sand long after the traveler has vanished, their genetic signatures remain. Over the past decade, this idea has moved from fringe curiosity to mainstream science. Researchers now recognize that the human genome is not a straight line back to a single founding population. It is a layered archive. Alongside the well-known traces of Neanderthals and Denisovans, studies suggest our DNA holds remnants from multiple ghost populations, early human lineages that rose, mingled, and disappeared without leaving a single identifiable skeleton. And the 2% discussed in this video belongs to one of the deepest and most mysterious of these lineages. This was not Neanderthal, not Denisovan, not any known archaic human. It was an early Homo sapiens branch, fully human, yet genetically distinct, that split off long before the classic out-of-Africa migration described in textbooks. A people who lived outside Africa in a warm, fertile world that is now desert, whose descendants did not survive, except for the small genetic traces they left inside every one of Eurasian ancestry. This ghost ancestry forces us to reconsider the simplicity of our origin story. Because when a vanished population still speaks through our DNA, it means our past is not just incomplete, it is far stranger and far richer than we imagined. For much of the last half-century, the story of our origins seemed beautifully simple. Modern humans evolved in Africa. Then, around 70,000 years ago, a small group, sometimes described as a few thousand individuals at most, stepped out of that homeland and into the wider world. According to the narrative, these pioneers carried with them everything that made us modern: our minds, our tools, our language. And as they moved across Eurasia, they spread rapidly, replacing or outcompeting every other human species they encountered. It was a clean arc, a single pulse of migration, a tidy explanation that fit neatly into textbooks, museum exhibits, and documentary scripts. But simplicity has a cost. This version of history smooths over the rough edges, the failed migrations, the earlier expansions, the human branches that rose and fell long before the famous Exodus. It ignores the possibility that modern humans may have stepped into Eurasia not once, but many times, during warm climatic windows that opened and closed like doors across millennia. And it leaves little room for the truth we now see inside our genomes. Because the discovery of the 2% ghost ancestry doesn't just complicate the story, it challenges its foundation. It tells us that before the well-known migration, there were already humans living beyond Africa. Humans who left no clear fossils behind, but left a genetic footprint that survived every extinction, every climate shift, every population bottleneck. If even a small fraction of our DNA comes from a lineage that predates the classic out-of-Africa event, then the once and only once model is not just incomplete, it is fundamentally outdated. The past, it turns out, wasn't simple. It was layered, chaotic, full of migrations that faltered, lineages that vanished, and encounters that reshaped who we would eventually become. As scientists look deeper into ancient genomes, the clean lines of our old origin story begin to blur. A new picture appears, overlapping migrations, lost populations, and branches that split and rejoined long before modern humans spread across the continents. A striking example comes from the Near East. When researchers sequenced early Neolithic farmers, they found much of their ancestry came from an unexpected source, a lineage now called Basal Eurasian. In some samples, this lineage made up an astonishing 44 to 66% of the genome. What makes Basal Eurasians remarkable is how deeply they diverged from every other non-African group. They seem to have split off before Europeans, before Asians, even before the major Eurasian branches themselves formed. And unlike other non-Africans, they carried little to no Neanderthal ancestry, meaning their separation happened before the major interbreeding events. Modern populations with higher basal Eurasian ancestry still show reduced Neanderthal DNA, a genetic echo of a group that once stood apart. These findings reveal a story textbooks rarely mention. Before familiar Eurasian branches emerged, deeply divergent Homo sapiens were already living across the Middle East, Arabia, and possibly North Africa. They were not temporary wanderers. They contributed real, lasting ancestry to the people who would become early farmers, city builders, and the ancestors of later civilizations. Looking at our genomes today, we are not seeing a single expansion from Africa. We are seeing a layered record written and rewritten by populations who rose, overlapped, vanished, and still left marks we are only beginning to understand. The deeper we look into ancient genomes, the more the old idea of a simple human family tree collapses into something far more complex. Take the Tianyuan individual, a young man who lived near Beijing about 40,000 years ago. His DNA shows a lineage distinct from Europeans, yet ancestral to many East Asians, Southeast Asians, and even Native Americans. By his time, Eurasia was already a mosaic of human groups, not a single expanding wave, but multiple branches following different evolutionary paths. Europe reveals the same pattern. The Zlati Kun woman, dated to about 45,000 years ago, represents one of the earliest modern humans on the continent. Her genome predates the split between Eastern and Western Eurasians, yet her lineage left no living descendants. She shows how entire populations could rise, flourish briefly, and vanish, leaving only faint genetic traces. Together, these discoveries reveal a profound truth. 45,000 to 50,000 years ago, Homo sapiens in Eurasia were not a uniform force. They were deeply structured, some branches merging, others fading away. Some left lasting legacies, others disappeared without shaping the modern world. This diversity wasn't exceptional, it was the norm. Eurasia was a shifting web of migrations, experiments, and lost futures. When we trace our ancestry today, we aren't following a single line, we are navigating a tapestry woven from countless branches and countless lives that ended long before our own began. The video suggests that this mysterious 2% ghost ancestry may come from a forgotten chapter of our species' history, an early expansion of Homo sapiens long before the well-known migration, not 70,000 years ago, but perhaps 200,000 to 120,000 years ago, during rare climatic windows, when Arabia and the Persian Gulf shifted from harsh deserts into green, fertile corridors filled with rivers and lakes. In this brief age of abundance, humans could move freely across landscapes that today seem impossible to cross. They hunted gazelle on open grasslands, gathered shellfish along once lush coastlines, shaped stone tools with skill, and crafted symbolic objects that hint at early sparks of culture. But environments change. When humidity gave way to drought and deserts returned, many of these early populations likely collapsed. Entire bands disappeared, leaving no clear trace in the archaeological record. Yet not all were lost. A small fraction of these early humans, isolated, resilient, genetically distinct, survived long enough to meet later waves of Homo sapiens. Their descendants blended into the populations that eventually spread across Eurasia, carrying the faint genetic imprint we now recognize as the 2% ghost signal. This idea is not wild speculation. It mirrors modern models of deep population structure, where ancient groups roamed Arabia and the Middle East, diverged from the main branches of humanity, and later vanished, leaving DNA echoes rather than bones. Researchers studying basal Eurasians and other early lineages propose a similar pattern. Populations that were real and influential, yet almost erased by time. The ghost ancestry we detect today may be the last surviving whisper of one such forgotten expansion. If this 2% ghost ancestry carries such profound implications, why isn't it headline news? Why isn't it in every documentary or classroom conversation about human origins? The answer, as experts quietly acknowledge, lies at the intersection of technical caution, academic culture, and the politics of scientific storytelling. Technically, population geneticists often treat small percentages as background noise. A 2% contribution doesn't dramatically shift statistical models. So, it is filed away in supplementary material rather than highlighted. In their view, it's a detail, not a breakthrough. But public narratives play by different rules. The classic out-of-Africa model is clean, simple, and easy to teach. One migration, one lineage, one story. It avoids the messy implications of multiple dispersals, failed expansions, interbreeding, and near extinctions. Simplicity comforts, and comfort often wins. Research culture reinforces this. Funding agencies prefer tidy, confident models over theories filled with uncertainty. Proposing lost lineages or ghost populations can appear speculative, even when supported by strong genetic signals. Messy, science is harder to package and defend. As one geneticist notes, many ghost populations remain mathematical constructs waiting for ancient DNA to prove they were real. It's a cautious stance, reasonable, but often used to avoid revising familiar stories. And so the topic stays quiet. Not because the evidence is weak, but because it complicates a narrative the world already accepts. In the last decade, paleogenomics has shattered the old, elegant story of a single human origin. As ancient DNA from across Eurasia is decoded, a far more intricate picture emerges, one built from overlapping migrations, lost lineages, and repeated waves of population change. Instead of one founding group, we now see many. Basal Eurasians, ancient West and East Eurasians, Upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, early Neolithic farmers, and several ghost groups whose identities remain unknown, but whose genetic traces persist today. These were not peripheral actors. They shaped the ancestry of billions. A major 2024 study sequencing hundreds of Mesolithic and Neolithic genomes revealed how turbulent this history was. Some regions saw near total population replacement. Others remained stable for thousands of years, holding pockets of continuity amid sweeping change. This is not the story of a single exodus from Africa or a smooth evolutionary line. It is the story of constant movement, migrations layered on migrations, expansions followed by collapse, populations rising, vanishing, and sometimes returning in altered form. The deeper scientists dig, the clearer the message becomes. Modern humans are not the descendants of one clean migration. We are the product of many movements, many experiments in survival, many branches of Homo sapiens that met, merged, or disappeared entirely. Our genomes are not straight lines. They are ancient webs, complex, tangled, and beautiful, carrying memories of peoples long vanished, yet still alive within us today. If the 2% ghost ancestry is real, and if deep structure models are correct, then our understanding of human origins is not just incomplete, it is fundamentally misaligned with what genetics now reveals. This discovery forces us to rethink the timing of early human expansions. Rather than a single migration 70,000 years ago, the evidence points to multiple waves stretching far deeper into the past. It also reshapes the geographic picture, with Arabia, the Levant, and the Persian Gulf emerging not as temporary stopovers, but as long-term homelands for ancient Homo sapiens lineages. It challenges our assumptions about resilience and extinction. Some early populations didn't disappear in failure, they contributed small but meaningful fragments to us. Others flourished for millennia before vanishing entirely, leaving genetic traces but no physical remains. And it expands what we mean by modern human. We are not the descendants of a single founder tribe. We are a mosaic formed by many branches, shaped by adaptation, migration, and chance encounters across deep time. The implications extend beyond science. The familiar narrative of a single tribe leaving Africa has often supported ideas of purity, linear progress, or a neat human family tree. But genetics reveals a richer story, one of deep mixture, overlapping ancestries, and ancient diversity far greater than what survives today. This complexity does not diminish humanity. It enriches it. It shows that our species was never a straight line, but a braided river, fed by countless tributaries, each carrying lives, stories, and genetic legacies still flowing within us. For all the breakthroughs in ancient DNA, vast stretches of our past remain hidden in darkness. The 2% ghost ancestry offers a tantalizing clue, yet so many pieces are still missing. We still have no unadmixed skeletons from these early populations. No skulls. No bones. Nothing we can point to and say, this is them. For now, they exist only as statistical signatures, real, measurable, but unseen. Ghosts in the most literal scientific sense. We also don't know how often these ancient groups mixed with others. Was it a single encounter? Repeated waves across thousands of years? Or a slow blending as small bands crossed shifting deserts, coastlines, and green corridors shaped by changing climates? Their geographic origins remain uncertain. Some evidence points to Arabia during lush interglacial periods. Other models favor the Persian Gulf basin, once a fertile plain now underwater. Still others suggest North Africa as a reservoir of deeply divergent Homo sapiens. There may have been more than one ghost lineage, parallel branches contributing slivers of ancestry still carried in us today. And then, there is the question of traits. Which alleles did these early people carry? Some variants survive in modern humans, influencing immunity, skin and hair biology, metabolism, perhaps even aspects of brain development. Yet the details remain unclear. We know just enough to sense their presence, and to recognize how much stays unknown. The ghost populations were real. Their echoes shape us. But the full story of who they were is still waiting beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when science and discovery bring them out of the shadows. If that 2% ghost DNA truly descends from an early human expansion that vanished long before recorded history, then every one of us outside Africa carries a lineage far older, far more diverse, and far more entangled than we were ever taught. The familiar story of a single, clean migration begins to feel less like science and more like a comforting myth, tidy, elegant, and easy to teach. But ultimately too simple to hold the weight of our real past. Because the true story is not a straight line. It is a maze. A history shaped by branching migrations, climatic collapses, doomed populations clinging to survival, and ghost lineages wandering through time before disappearing from the earth but not from our DNA. So the next time someone says, "We all came from one small tribe 70,000 years ago," pause for a moment. Remember that inside you, inside all of us, is a quiet whisper from people who walked green Arabian plains, now lost to desert, who hunted gazelle along ancient lakes, who built lives in worlds long erased. They thrived, they struggled, they vanished, and yet a fragment of their existence persists in your genome like a faint memory written in code. Their story didn't end. We carry it. Final words from Prehistoric Shadows. What hidden ancestors walk within you, waiting for their story to be uncovered? If you want to explore deeper ancient climates, forgotten migrations, vanished cultures buried beneath layers of time. Subscribe. This journey is only beginning. Join us and step into the lost chapters of human prehistory.